enlightening.
Self-fulfilling. Self-fulfilling.
It's really fun. Actually, not just one word. Fun.
Exciting.
Okay, that would be enlightening. Oh, probably insightful.
Empowering.
Astonishing.
It's enlightening, but very overwhelming.
Sustainable. Dynamic. Enlightening.
Self-fulfilling. Self-fulfilling.
It's really fun. Actually, not just one word. Fun and very engaging.
Essential.
Very experiential.
Exciting.
Okay, that would be enlightening. Oh, probably insightful.
Empowering.
Astonishing.
It's enlightening, but very overwhelming.
A pleasant morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the webinar on strengthening the role of cooperatives in the promotion of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, or UN SDGs. I am Cheska Habugoy, your host for this morning's event. This program is organized by BIGGKAS Plus, the Extension and Outreach Office of the University of Asia and the Pacific, in partnership with the Center for Social Responsibility. And we would like to thank UANP Credit Cooperative for being part of the organizing committee. May I also greet the 219 participants here in Zoom, as well as the participants viewing through Facebook Live. Again, welcome and thank you very much for joining us today. Before we proceed to the program proper, may we give you some house rules or guidelines for our webinar. Okay, so let's see the house rules for this webinar. So first, for our house rules, please feel free to ask questions in the Q&A button at any given point of the webinar. Your questions will be collected and presented to the speakers after the talk. So for the participants viewing through Facebook Live, you may send your questions in the comment section. Also, please indicate to whom your question is addressed. For the purpose of transparency, we are letting you know that this webinar will be recorded for documentation purposes. And we would also appreciate it if you could provide answers to the short survey that we will be sending after the webinar. Okay? Okay, so we're having some technical difficulties, but I hope that everyone's doing well right now. And we're really excited for this webinar. Okay, so after the house rules, please be guided by the flow of our program this morning. So earlier, we started with the national anthem. Then we will have the opening remarks. After the presentation of our two speakers, there will be a Q&A there will be a Q&A session. So again, if you have questions to our speakers, just type in your questions in the Q&A button. And then after Q&A session, we will end the program with the adoption of the unity statement and closing remarks as seen in your screens. Okay? Next slide, please. Now, we will first have a brief introduction on BIGGKAS Plus to be discussed by its program director. He is also a faculty member of UANP under the Center for Social Responsibility. He holds a master's degree in geography from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, where he also served as faculty from 2015 to 2017, as well as the Assistant College Secretary of the College of Social Sciences and Philosophy from 2016 to 2017. Let us all welcome Mr. Fernand Francis Hermoso.
Thank you very much, Cheska. Good morning, everyone. BIGGKAS Plus is the university-wide extension program of the University of Asia and the Pacific. The program is a fundamental element of the liberal and well-rounded learning environment that UANP provides to its students, faculty, and staff in order to cultivate genuine intellectual formation. Likewise, the extension program is grounded in the university credo, which states that it aspires to form individuals who are professionally competent, creative, and enterprising, zealous for the common good, and capable of making free, morally upright choices, and who can thus act as positive agents of change and service to society. The project name is an acronym for the 7 basic initiative extension clusters, namely BASA, Isip, Gawa, Galing, Katesismo, Arte, and Sports. It is an offshoot of the university-wide project BIGGKAS, initiated by the Civics Desk of then Office of Student Affairs, and now Center for Student Affairs. Its concept was inspired by a simple half-day outreach activity initiated back in 2005 in the form of an event designed to help children appreciate reading through storytelling sessions, art workshops, and book lending. From then, it evolved into a full-blown extension program that aims to kindle the spirit of generosity and volunteerism among UANP faculty, staff, and employee, as well as promote the values of charity, solidarity, and citizenship. With this, I, Fernand Hermoso, welcome you to one of BIGGKAS Plus extension programs in partnership with UANP Center for Social Responsibility and the UANP Credit Cooperative during this quarantine period, strengthening the roles of cooperatives in the promotion of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hermoso. And thank you to BIGGKAS Plus for leading in organizing this event. This webinar gives us an opportunity to learn more about the cooperatives, especially their crucial role and contributions to the UN SDGs. We are pleased to welcome our notable speakers. We are joined by Dr. Hilda San Gabriel to talk about COVID-19 and the response of cooperatives. And Mr. Bienvenido Nito will discuss cooperatives as an agent promoting the 17 SDGs. So thank you to our speakers for joining us this morning. Now, to give the opening remarks, may we call on Dr. Bernardo Villegas, Research Director of the Center for Research and Communication and co-founder of UANP.
Welcome to all the participants in this webinar on the role of cooperatives in promoting the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. Pope Francis has done us a great service by recently coming out with an encyclical entitled Fratelli Tutti, All My Brethren, when he gave a very important distinction between what we now call directed love on one hand and political love on the other. And let me explain. This is the first time that in a document of the Pope, those two definitions of love are given. What is directed love? You know, we Filipinos are very good in directed love. What does that mean? That we are well known for social skills in interacting with people that we meet face to face. First of all, within the family, then extended family, then in our community. When we know people, we can direct our love towards them better than in many societies. You can have societies in which people within the family or people who work with one another can be very cold. They don't lack our emotional advantages. And that is why Filipinos all over the world are well known for what are known as soft skills. Unfortunately, when it comes to promoting the common good, and how do we define the common good? A social or juridical order which enables everyone in society, wherever they are, whether or not we know their faces, whether or not they are strangers to us, we still do things that will promote their welfare. That is knowing how to promote the common good. And Filipinos are not exactly famous for doing that, promoting the welfare of people whom they do not see face to face, who are anonymous to them. Let me give you an example. You know, we Filipinos are very well known for hygiene. In fact, when I was in Europe, I was always told by people there that they appreciate Filipino workers because they take a shower every day, they're very clean, and so on and so forth. But then how do Filipinos, especially the male Filipinos, behave in a public toilet? They couldn't care less if they leave a toilet completely dirty because they couldn't care less for the next person who's a stranger to them having a pleasant environment. And we can multiply that example from hygiene to littering to doing things for the whole society. really putting into practice patriotism. Now, I submit that cooperatives have played a very important role of transitioning from directed love to now what Pope Francis calls political love. The ability of persons, not only politicians, obviously, the first ones who have to know how to exercise political love are the politicians. They're governing hundreds of thousands, even millions of people whom they do not know personally, whom they have to serve in their respective positions. But political love can also be exercised by individuals who, in their everyday activity, are always thinking of how will this individual behavior of mine impact on the whole of society, whether I know whether I know their faces, whether I know they're strangers to me. And cooperatives traditionally have been a way of transitioning. Why? Because, as you very well know, in a cooperative, still many of the members are well known to you. Like, for example, the credit cooperative of UNB, they know one another. But as you expand the reach of cooperatives, as you have groups of cooperatives, more and more, the people whose welfare you are promoting are no longer known to you, but you still do things to promote them. Promote the welfare of these other members of society who are pure strangers to you, especially when it comes to these goals that you are specially discussing: eradication of poverty and hunger, quality education, decent work and economic growth, reduce inequalities, responsible production and consumption, climate action, peace, justice, and strong institutions. These are all goals that are promoted by creating the appropriate institutions. And each one of us, no matter how small our role is, can contribute to making sure that the institutions, the policies, the environment are there that will promote these goals. And so I submit that cooperatives will be very important in this country to make Filipinos graduate from where they are very good at directed love, loving people they know, from their family, community, and so on and so forth, to the 110 Filipinos at large, who will definitely benefit by anything that they do to promote the eradication of poverty, improving education, especially in the public schools, promoting enterprises that will generate employment and economic growth, and making sure that inequalities are reduced more and more, and making sure that people in their production and their consumption exercise responsibility, especially towards the environment. And I'm sure that the two speakers will be able to address the role of cooperatives in the promotion of the Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you, and may I wish all of you a very fruitful webinar that will help not only the Philippines, but countries all over Asia and the world to also use cooperatives to transition from directed love to political love.
Thank you very much, Dr. Villegas. So just an update, I would like to acknowledge our 289 participants here in Zoom. Thank you very much for joining us today. And it is now my pleasure to introduce our first speaker this morning. She is the chairperson of the Department of Cooperatives and Social Development and a faculty member in the College of Business Administration Graduate School in the Polytechnic University of the Philippines, and also a former faculty member in UANP Center for Social Responsibility. She recently held positions as the director of the Institute for Social Sciences and Development and concurrent chief of the Center for Human Rights and Gender Studies of PUP. Since 2012, she has been the editor-in-chief in the Social Sciences and Development Review, a CHED-recognized journal. She was also a research fellow and plenary presenter in the 5th International Human Rights Education Conference in the American University Washington College of Law. To talk about COVID-19 and the response of cooperatives, let us all welcome Dr. Hilda Felipe San Gabriel.
Good morning. Am I being heard?
Yes, we can hear you, Dr. Dang.
Good morning, Cheska. Good morning to Professor Francis. Good morning to Director Colleen Ligarde Hubo from the Center for Social Responsibility, to Dr. Bernardo Villegas, the founder of University of Asia and the Pacific, and to Dr. Gary from the Philippine Cooperative Center, Dr. Gary Leonardo. Good morning also to my mentor, Professor Bienvenido. I'm so excited to be sharing ideas with our guests and participants in today's event. I'm really humbled and honored to be part of this webinar entitled Strengthening the Role of Cooperatives in the Promotion of the UN Sustainable Development Goals.
Dr. Dang, excuse po.
Yes. Am I given the access to share my screen?
Yes, we can see the slides po. Can we have a full screen view of the slides?
Okay, hold on.
Okay. There, it's okay now.
Okay na, Ma'am Cheska?
Yes, Dr. Dang, it's okay now. Thank you.
So my topic is about COVID-19 and the response of social solidarity economy and cooperatives. Um, uh, this is very much befitting because we are all in the midst of pandemic, and like what Dr. Villegas mentioned, that we Filipinos will be more or less be able to graduate from the what we call poverty situation that we are into right now. The poverty that situation that we are into right now is even aggravated because of the presence of the pandemic. And so I would like to share with each and every one of you the important roles the social solidarity economy and cooperatives have played in the response to the present predicament we are in right now. Allow me also to acknowledge the UANP Credit Cooperative, no, where I am part of in I think year 2012, no. So let me begin with discussing the Sustainable Development Goals. SDGs came about during the UN Conference on Sustainable Development in Rio de Janeiro in 2012. The SDGs replaced the Millennium Development Goals, which started a global effort in year 2000 to tackle the indignity of poverty. In 1987, the Brundtland Commission published its report, Our Common Future, in an effort to link the issues of economic development and environmental stability. In doing so, this report, coming from the Brundtland Commission, Our Common Future, provided the definition of sustainable development as development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Ms. Cheska,
Yes, Dr. Dang? Would you like us to share your slides on your behalf?
yeah, I had a hard time calibrating my slide. It's not moving to the next page.
Okay. Okay, we'll just share the slides, Dr. Dang, if it's okay with you.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
Okay, okay. Dr. Dang, can you click the stop share so we can share the screen now? There, okay. Is it okay now, Dr. Dang?
May I continue?
Yes, yes, go
Can you
ahead,
see my
Dr. Dang.
screen? Can you see my
Yes,
screen now?
we're
Okay.
already sharing po the screen. Can you
Okay, this concept of sustainable development aims to maintain economic advancement and progress while protecting the long-term value of the environment. Now, it provides a framework for the integration of environment policies and development strategies. And the global goals are actually, no, the global sustainable development goals are actually part and parcel of the DNA of the social solidarity economy and cooperative movement, no, through the theory and praxis of the cooperative universally accepted 7 principles. The interconnectedness of SDGs and social solidarity economy. Now, these 17 global goals are for sustainable development are interrelated, and often the key to one success will involve the issues most frequently linked to another. So the goals, actually there are 17 goals, but they can be summarized as follows, no? Eradicate poverty and hunger, guaranteeing a healthy life. And then we could have universalized access to basic services such as water, sanitation, and sustainable energy. Support the generation of development opportunities through inclusive education and decent work. foster innovation and resilient infrastructure, creating communities and cities able to produce and consume sustainably. Then we have another, and that is reduce inequality in the world, especially that concerning gender. No? Next, we have care for the environment, combating climate change and protecting the oceans and land ecosystems. And lastly is the promotion and collaboration between different social agents to create an environment of peace and sustainable development. So more so when I say that social solidarity economy and cooperatives are very much interconnected to the achievement of the goals of the Sustainable Development Goal, I mean precisely the summary on eradicating poverty and hunger, no? And also the universal access to basic services, no? Which cooperative organizations are providing. The social solidarity economy is a global movement that builds a post-capitalist world that puts people and planet front and center rather than the pursuit of blind growth and profit maximization. Cooperatives are people-centered enterprises jointly owned and democratically controlled by and for their members to realize their common socioeconomic needs and aspirations. No? As enterprises based on values and principles, they put fairness and equality first, allowing people to create sustainable enterprises that generate long-term jobs and prosperity. Increasingly, research across many disciplines has shown that we are hardwired to cooperate. In fact, the survival of the human species has depended on our ability to work together. Social solidarity economy exists in all sectors of the economy, from production, finance, distribution, exchange, consumption, and governance. In SSE, ordinary people play an active role in shaping all of the dimensions of human life, be it economic, social, cultural, political, and environmental. SSE also aims to transform the social and economic system that includes public, private, and third sectors. No? Social solidarity economy is not only about the poor, but it strives to overcome inequalities, which includes all classes of society. SSE, where cooperative is part of, has the ability to take the best practices that exist in our present system, such as efficiency, in their operations, and also the use of technology and knowledge, and transform themselves to serve the welfare of the community based on different values and goals. Important to remember that rather than making a virtue out of the pursuit of calculated self-interest or profit maximization and competition, the things that underpin capitalism, social solidarity economy nurtures people's capacity for solidarity, cooperation, reciprocity, mutual aid, altruism, caring, sharing, compassion, and love. These are all the variables for a humane society. Now, I have here the values of SSE and cooperatives. These are humanism, democracy, inclusiveness, subsidiarity, and solidarity. First off is about humanism. Humanism is to place human beings and their dignity, culture, and full development at the center of our efforts. Cooperatives and social solidarity economy are committed to the construction and promotion of projects aimed at building capacities for the individual and collective development and well-being of people. Now, the other value is about democracy. As cooperative promote participatory democracy based on the participation of citizens in political decision-making at all levels of the public space. Co-ops also advocate an economic democracy based on the capacity of people to make decisions about subjects which concern them as workers, as consumers, as producers, and reproducers, as well as on the public character of decisions relating to what is to be produced, how it is to be produced, and why it is produced, and how profits are redistributed or invested. Now, this is so one of the emphases I would want to concentrate on. the value of solidarity. Solidarity allows people to recognize themselves in relation to others and to be concerned about their well-being. This implies mobilizing resources and establishing relations with other social collectives and movements in an effort to form an extensive network of people and organizations geared toward building a fairer, more democratic, and equalitarian world. In fact, the concept of bayanihan will be lifted from the very premise of the value of social solidarity economy, which is solidarity in action. And then the other value is subsidiarity. And this is when we recognize and value the capacities and knowledge of individuals and groups for them to solve their own problems, no, and decide on their own. And that is subsidiarity. In our intervention, we seek to assert the grassroots development, no? Promoting organizations and associations to overcome common problems and openness to even greater endeavors. Now, the last value is inclusiveness. We are a network open to the range of practices of solidarity in the economy, which emerge from different realities and sectors. And in this perspective, we aim at establishing dialogue based on the respect for ideological differences and the quest for consensus. Now, about the significance of the social solidarity economy and cooperatives, in the United Kingdom, some 62,000 social enterprises contribute to around 24 billion pounds or about 37.1 billion US dollars in the economy. And in the UK alone, people are employed, around 800,000 people are employed in cooperatives and social solidarity economy. In Europe, 2 million SSE organizations represent about 10% of all companies. In India, over 30 million people, mainly women, are organized in over 2.2 million self-help groups. And the country's largest food marketing corporation, the cooperative organization Amul, has 3.1 million producer members and an annual revenue of 2.5 billion US dollars. In Nepal, 5 million forest users are organized in the country's largest civil society organization. The global fair trade market has grown to 4.9 euro billion and roughly 6.4 billion US dollars and involves some 1.2 million workers and farmers producing certified products, no? In our country alone, in the Philippines, there are 27,000 registered cooperatives with about 11.5 million members all over the country, spread all over the country. The mutual benefit societies provide health and social protection services to 170 million people worldwide. Cooperatives, significant impact, no? The 3 million cooperatives on earth contribute to sustainable economic growth and stable quality employment, okay? The cooperative movement accounts for at least 12% of humanity. There are around 280 million people across the globe, no? Which is employed by cooperatives organization. And this is about 10% of the world's employed population. Also, top 300 cooperatives generate 2.1 trillion US dollars in turnover. So the significant is really enormous. Why is there a growing interest in SSE and cooperatives? The theory and evidence tell us that such an approach can be a key mechanism through which poor or disempowered people in society gain greater control over resources and decision-making processes that affect our lives. Presence of social cohesion and common identity, as well as self-respect and mutual trust of the members have been also raised, and many of sociologists have put value into these variables of common identity, self-respect, and social cohesion. as part of the operational definition of cooperatives and the social solidarity economy. Sustainable development is in the DNA of co-ops through the practice of its 7 universally accepted principles. Now, the advent of a pandemic comes in. No? A pandemic occurs when there is a disease outbreak that spreads across countries or continents. And there have been 5 major pandemic in the last 140 years, with the Spanish flu pandemic in 1918 being the most severe, estimated to have been responsible for the deaths of 50 to 100 million people. And then the swine flu pandemic in 2009 resulted in under 1 million deaths and is considered relatively mild. No? The COVID-19 pandemic now, considered by the World Health Organization to be in phase 5 alert level, as it is characterized by human-to-human spread of the virus into at least 2 countries in a continent. I have here with me a global tracker of COVID-19. This is released by the Center for Systems Science and Engineering at Johns Hopkins University. And as of yesterday, December 3, 2020, 10:28 p.m., the global cases of COVID-19 pandemic has reached to 64,683,202. And you would notice here almost all of the continents with red markings have been affected by the COVID. So on the daily cases here, the progression increases. And in the United States alone, there are 13,931,901 cases. And then in India, next to the US, they have 9,534,964. And then followed by Brazil. Russia, France, Spain, United Kingdom also have their own fair share of the gravity of cases. And the deaths, global deaths of COVID-19 pandemic has reached to 1,496,055. In our country alone, the Philippines COVID case tracker, we have about 435,413 total COVID cases and inactive cases of 27,643. Out of the 435,413, 399,325 have recovered, but we have lost a good number. We have bereaved for the last several months. There are 8,446 who died, and apparently, as of yesterday, additional cases of 1,061, added active cases, and these confirmed cases are those that tested with the RT-PCR positive by DOH-RITM certified laboratory. So the number is still alarming, And in terms of the top regions, that these cases are divided into, we have the National Capital Region taking the highest with around 199,361, followed by Region 4A, Calabarzon, 80,482, and then Region 3, Central Luzon, 27,937. Next, we have the Central Visayas, Region 7, 25,000 plus, and also the Western Visayas, 21,000 plus. Now, in terms of top cities, we have Quezon City with the highest number, 36,484, and the city of Manila, 25,000. Next, followed by Cavite, Laguna, Rizal. For November 26 up to December 2, 2020, there are a weekly summation of 5,158 COVID cases. Our predicament, of course, global food prices have been rising during the coronavirus pandemic, And also the issue of food security is already we are confronted with. No, the report of Asian Development Bank posit that countries in the region might experience in the fourth quarter inflation issues, but we're hoping to recover hopefully in 2021. No? The effect of COVID on cooperatives, there have been increase there in delinquency, no, from among the members, and this is due to the loss of income of members, and loss of income of members is tantamount to low collections of cooperatives, and low collections would redound to lost revenues that lead to reduced net surplus or even deficit, no, position of the cooperative. So although there has been increase in delinquency, we cannot also belittle the efforts of the cooperative organization in the region, no? And the way they have responded to pandemic. And so let me start with the Self-Employed Women's Association, India's Self-Employed Women, whose members also SEWA, no? SEWA is a member of the International Health Cooperative Organization and the International Organization of Industrial and Service Cooperatives. They were among the first to respond to the pandemic, highlighting the impact of the crisis on informal workers and identifying it as a double pandemic, with people potentially losing both their lives and livelihoods. Sewa and Lok Shasti continues to run low-cost pharmacies, and they manufacture low-cost sanitizers at their Ayurvedic manufacturing unit. They have supplied food to children and the aged. They have produced low-cost masks, no, while also creating awareness on the pandemic locally. And then the Bulgaria's Central Cooperative Union acted fast, and they have created an online platform called Co-op Care to facilitate immediate requests of essential food products and PPE, and to keep the cooperative community abreast on the development of the pandemic. In their testimonial, the CCU, the Central Cooperative Union, expressed gratitude to Italian cooperatives that delivered disinfectants and cleaning detergents for consumption throughout Bulgaria. Now, the National Cooperative Business Association, Cooperative League of the US, reported that cooperatives are eligible to have access to the economic disaster packages passed by the US Congress. The organization worked to ensure cooperatives in all sectors to avail of this access to economic disaster packages. And cooperatives in major sectors deemed essential services included food, agriculture, and credit union are part of the disaster package, no, of the recovery disaster economic package being given by the National Cooperative Business Association, Cooperative League of the United States of America. Now, in the Philippines, no, the credit cooperative sector in the Philippines transformed into reaction centers, and the Association of ASEAN Confederation of Credit Unions. The said credit unions in the Philippines were also able to redirect member education funds to assist frontline health workers and communities in response to the crisis. And cooperatives have participated in distributing food and fresh produce to people's doorsteps. No, NATCO, CLIMBS, 1CISP cooperatives shared and supported members, community, staff, and officers. Now, the ACDI, Multipurpose Cooperative, also have the milk donation drive for frontliners. The ACDI MPC also supported the PUP Contra COVID campaign, particularly in the production of ethyl alcohol, which were eventually distributed for free to frontline groups and hospitals. The local bayanihan spirit has been felt and has been concretized in the midst of pandemic. Cooperatives has responded by providing the much needed assistance by the members and society at large. Now, in terms of new developments, no, as raised in the Bayanihan Act, the COVID-19 response and recovery interventions. Of course, we have here the Balik Probinsya program, no, wherein people and informal settlers are encouraged to go back to their rural provinces and for them to begin with their livelihoods there. And then we have a 60-day loan moratorium. No? The Cooperative Development Authority has issued a 60-day loan moratorium for members with loans, no, to halt the payment of their loans. And then also we have continued compliance with protocols. Cooperative has also served as testing centers, no, for their members. And then there's also COVID-19 assistance to start enterprises. Then the Small Business Corporation also provided loan-free subsidy. No? So here I have with me some documentation of how USAID have helped a number of cooperatives, no, under the AgriCo PH, no, and also the program supported by DTI, USAID, no, the Digital Filipina platform. This connects women entrepreneurs to the digital economy so that women will have other means, no, to be able to start off their small-scale enterprises. There's also a co-op to co-op trading, no, program that continues to help farmers sell their produce and consumers source cheaper produce amidst COVID-19. So there's a continuous people, enterprises, and livelihoods, no? And in fact, cooperatives continue to provide water to rural areas. There's also the campaign to have a bayanihan and a bagsakan. These are platform wherein farmers' produce are directly put in one area where consumers, not only members of co-op, but other consumers would have access to fresh produce, vegetables coming from the farm, no? Here, because this is a direct market, no, consumers would get an easy access to whatever food they need. Now, in terms of my last few slides, I will dwell on ways for co-op to bounce back, no? And of course, this start would be the provision, no, for a regulatory relief. This is very much needed, and this has happened already, the 60-day loan moratorium proviso. And then aside from the regulatory relief, I would also emphasize that there's a need to provide provision of probable losses to ensure capital of the cooperative. No? I would also campaign for fund, no, availability of fund to cover disaster and calamity fund, because after the pandemic, while we're still in the pandemic, typhoons come in, no, and we are really badly hit, no. So there should be a fund to cover disaster and calamity. Also, I would suggest the presence of credit and social insurance. And then the provision for food security policy agenda. So I am happy that a number of cooperative leaders are attending our webinar right now. So they could put in their general boardroom meeting and general assembly meetings the proviso for budget for food security and also policy on that. Of course, I would enjoin all the membership of co-op, no, to continue patronizing cooperative products and services. And then lastly, of course, there should be a continued effort to build and strengthen our networks. No? So the other aspect for cooperatives to bounce back is the presence of infrastructure and then extension. Next, market access and credit and social insurance are needed to facilitate the adaptation and diversification of smallholder livelihoods. So the program to support members to bring back their enterprises should be there. So even though the members would have already their existing loans, no, I do hope cooperatives would still allow them, no, to avail of productive capitalization to start their small scale livelihoods. So my fearless forecast is, of course, there could be success factors for social solidarity economy and cooperatives because of the presence of the 7 universally accepted cooperative foundational principles. And then, of course, we have social cohesion and social capital. No? We are governed with these 3 very important variables. And also, social economy, enterprises, and cooperative organizations have proven to be an important element in mitigating the effects of the pandemic. From the earlier samples I gave, and there are still other global initiatives, no? But for in the interest of time, I just selected those few. Cooperatives, they not only support governments by addressing sanitary issues related to COVID-19, they're also serving as a trusted partner, ensuring a better allocation of resources in the provision of goods and services sorely needed to address immediate concerns. And lastly, the social solidarity economy and cooperatives could make a difference in people's lives. As I quote from Pope Francis, the current pandemic has highlighted our interdependence. We are all connected to each other for better or for worse. Therefore, to emerge from this crisis better than before, we have to do so together. Together, not alone, because it cannot be done. Either it is done together or it is not done. We must do it together, all of us, in solidarity. Unquote. To everyone, thank you so much for listening. Stay safe. Mabuhay po. Magandang umaga.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Dr. Dang. So again, we will have a Q&A session after the talks of the 2 speakers. Okay, so let's proceed to our next speaker. He is the consultant on cooperatives in the Center for Research and Communication and a former faculty member in the School of Economics in UANP. Currently, he is a professorial lecturer in the Department of Cooperatives and Social Development in PUP. He serves as an advisor of various primary cooperatives and a trustee of several development NGOs. He is an accredited trainer in the Land Bank Countryside Development Foundation Incorporated and BIP coach in Go Negosyo Kapatid Agri Mentor Me program. He also participated as delegate and presenter in national and international seminars and conferences on cooperatives and on social economy. To give the presentation on cooperatives as an agent promoting the 17 SDGs, let us all welcome Mr. Bienvenido Nito.
Morning, Cheska. Do you have a copy of my presentation,
Yes,
Cheska?
yes, sir.
Okay. Just let's go to the brief introduction and the outline. Okay, so essentially, this is what I will talk about, this cooperatives in 2020, the blueprint, the cooperatives in the 19th and 20th century, the co-ops identity, and the co-ops and SDGs. Dr. Dang has elaborated much of it, but I'd like to start off with the role or the message or the inspiration coming from Pope Francis. As you know, Pope Francis was exposed to the cooperatives when in 1954, when his father, who is actively involved in community cooperatives, explained to them, to his siblings, what the cooperatives is doing for their community, and it stuck to him. since then in 1954 up to the many years that he stayed in Argentina, and then he moved to the Vatican. But in 2015, prior to 2015, the two persons with him in the picture is the president then of ICA, Madame Pauline Green, and his companion and her companion. Pope Francis was a speaker in two general assemblies of cooperatives in 2015. And the first one was with the Federation of Workers Cooperative, and the second one was the Federation of Cooperative Credit Bank in Italy. And he encouraged them, both, or these two federations, to really focus on certain issues, like the issue of unemployment, especially among the youth, and issue of welfare and health needs of the elderly. And then the condition of those people living in existential peripheries, or also the existential margins. And especially, he is concerned for, or encouraged cooperatives to really find ways to generate work for mothers without abandoning, who can contribute to income, family income, without abandoning their young children. And for cooperatives to really promote honesty and healing economy. As you know, this would be eventually followed by his encyclical on Laudato Si. Next, please. So, well, this has been, this is what I will be concluding, but this is the main theme. So if your connectivity, internet connectivity will become stable, these are my main thoughts about this presentation, as mentioned also by Dr. Dang, and maybe some other volunteers in the cooperative movement, that SDG is in the DNA, is a co-op DNA, okay? And then the co-ops in the 19th century has responded to this SDG concern since then. Then the ICA Blueprint 2020 is about the deepening of co-op identity and sustainability. And the ICA Agenda for 2020 is strengthening the alignment with SDG 2030. And co-ops through ICA is the largest NGO in the world. So these are the main thoughts. Okay, this has been mentioned by Dr. Dang. I will not repeat this. This is the extent of what the cooperative has done for so far as the biggest NGO, and what the large 300 cooperatives or mutuals have contributed to the world. And that means their social and economic impact. Next, please. And of course, this one also, as mentioned by Dr. Dang, and worth to mention would be the role of that cooperatives mainly organized by women, AMUL and SEWA, the Self-Employed Women Association of India. Next, please. So it's the largest NGO today, and that means it has really impacted a lot of people, close to 1 billion people. Yes, please. Next, please. And the first woman president of ICA, Dame Pauline Green, was here. And he was, if you recognize the people in the audience, they are the officers of San Dionisio Credit Cooperative, among the pioneer and largest community-based cooperatives after FICO, and one of the oldest, and has been very consistent in what they're doing to promote sustainability in the Philippines. And well, of course, with their fight with that the coastal area in San Dionisio, and memorable was the way they attended to the fisher folks that were affected by the road widening for that Sucat Road in the past. That they created a housing project, but they did that in a very cooperative way. Next, please. And of course, the blueprint. There are 5 elements of the blueprint. And worth to mention that it was Madame Pauline Green's time in when she was instrumental in really creating or pushing for this platform when they started this in 2011 rather, and then up to 2020. That's why this year is really the assessment of that 10-year decade of cooperatives, which Madame Pauline Green started. Okay. These are the 5 pillars. Okay. participation, sustainability, the unique identity, capital mobilization, the legal framework. And this is practically defining or strengthening the identity of cooperative, or the so-called DNA of cooperatives in promoting the SDGs. Yes, please go ahead. Next. Okay, so this has been mentioned. Okay. Essentially, participation means not only membership, but participation of members up to the challenges of governance. Next, please. Sustainability, essentially, through those blueprint, in that blueprint, they really wanted to position cooperative as a builder of sustainability. Next, please. Of course, essentially sustaining or trying to strengthen the unique identity of cooperative, which Dr. Dang elaborated earlier. Next, please. And very important for cooperatives is to secure reliable cooperative capital without losing their autonomy and independence. Next, please. And then the legal framework that the cooperatives has achieved so far and has been fighting for and defending and trying to enhance it with a lot of help. And later on, I will mention what the TCC, with the help of the group of Dr. Gary Leonardo, the Senator Subiri, Congressman Kanama, has been doing to this extent. Yes, please. So I will just mention quickly here how the DNA has evolved and how the DNA started of the cooperative. Of course, you have the pioneers in England, the Rochdale pioneers, Robert Owen and Dr. William King. Dr. William King is always mentioned as the father of cooperative, but he was inspired precisely by Mr. Robert Owen as an industrialist who is a social reformer. He founded the initial work on cooperatives. And of course, that inspired also the Rochdale pioneers. Next, please. Okay, and they are essentially working with the poor. That's how and then working with workers to enhance the working condition, to really promote the decent work. Next, please. So these are the guys. Robert Owen provided the framework, the theories. Then next, please. Dr. William King, a medical doctor, really operationalized the ideas of Robert Owen through the many cooperatives that he helped set up. Next, please. And of course, the cooperative in Germany with Raiffeisen and Franz Hermann Schulz, the leads, is starting the game. We always know Raiffeisen as the pioneer of credit union, but he specialized in the rural area, while Schulze de Litz is specialized with artisan workers. And that's why he was more prominent as the founder or the first organizer of the first world credit union, Schulze de Litz. Hermann Schulze of de Litz. Next, please. So this is Friedrich Wilhelm Raiffeisen, who pioneered rural credit unions that inspired many of the cooperatives in the Philippines as well. Next, please. And this is Hermann Schulze de Litz, who was recognized as the founder of world first credit union. But he's a politician, but then he is really known to be working with craftsmen and guilds. Next, please. And of course, in North America, you have Filene also trying to improve the working condition, to help improve, to generate decent work and address the problem of workers, his workers at the time. Okay, he's also an entrepreneur, a businessman. But it's good to know that the credit union that we have here really started from the Filene movement. First, he went from the US, then he went to India and other parts of Asia, then he sent somebody to go and work in the Philippines to start a cooperative in Bigan, Ilocos Sur in 1936. But of course, that was short-lived. Okay, next, please. And of course, this is Edward Albert Filene. Okay. He pioneered credit unions across the United States, and that was copied, and that led to the formation of the World Credit the Council of Credit Union, and also the ACU, the ASEAN Credit Confederation of Credit Union in Bangkok. Okay, next please. The Desjardins movement, initiated by Alphonse Desjardins, who was working and who is a Paris worker, seeing how poor the communities are, and he has the permission and the guidance of the Archbishop in their diocese in that part of Canada, and then he started organizing cooperatives in the parishes in Canada. And that is the forerunner of the Desjardins or the Desjardins movement. Okay, so that's Alphonse Desjardins. Okay, next please. And then in northern Spain, you have Father Jose Maria Arismendi Arrieta, who is now blessed, or rather venerable. He was declared venerable by the Pope for his work in the cooperatives since 1940s, the late 40s, after the Spanish Civil War. And then the first cooperative was born in 1954 of the Mondragon Corporation Cooperativa. And my friend, Bernie Catalunya, may he rest in peace, he wrote a book about that, and his book is entitled Entre Workers Cooperative. And he summarized the major goals of that, which is very much aligned to what we're talking about, the SDGs, which is it is concerned with job creation, improvement of incomes, employment stability, and integral human development. This is about decent work and economic growth and addressing the problems of poverty. Next, please. So this is Father Jose Maria Arismendi Arrieta. Okay. And this was already mentioned, but it's good to see that the World 300 cooperatives have really a big impact on rural poor and environment. 30% impact the agriculture sector of the cooperatives, and for the retail, and have an improved an impact on the consumption. Very much also aligned with certain goals of the SDGs. Next, please. Okay, so the following would be the different initiatives of the cooperative, the ICA and cooperatives, and those of the 300. They have really impacted a lot on the social development goals. Next, please. Okay, I want to mention here Lars Marcus. He was the president of ICA at a time when when ICA was talking about in 1995, discussing the inclusion of a principle number 7, the concern for the community. But in that context, he led the discussion on environment and sustainable development. Next, please. So Lars Marcus was very instrumental in paving the way for the involvement, or the active involvement, of course, the many practices of cooperatives, and the way it started from the time of the pioneers and Owen, and in Germany with Raiffeisen, and in Northern America with the Desjardins and Filene, and Father Jose Maria Arismendi Arrieta. These are all different initiatives coming from many places. But then now with the effort done by Lars Marcus, who died last November 13, this last November 13, he was emphasizing that we have to put together, and we have to make the people know globally and worldwide that the cooperative is doing something, because before it was really isolated in different parts of the world. Now, with the help of ICA, they're trying to put an image to what the cooperative has actually contributed to the discussion on environment and sustainable development. Next, please. So he started also working with key personalities in the cooperative to preserve that DNA of the cooperative, the values, the identity. So he really worked to strengthen that part. Next, please. And then he was just saying that the cooperative really has a big impact, and therefore should be able to work and be a partner, and that they should be not be imposed upon by the state. Okay. And the state, national and international, local and national, should be really a partner for development. Next, please. So as I mentioned, he was instrumental for installing the principle number 7 on the concern for the community, which really is a very important component of the social development goals, the platform. And of course, the current president now, Dr. Ariel Guarco, working to continue. So you have Lars Marcus, who started the discussion actually on consolidating all the efforts done by cooperatives from all parts of the world. And then you have Madame Pauline Green creating the blueprint for 2020, and then ICA Guarco, or ICA President Dr. Ariel Guarco, cementing that and projecting that until 2030 and creating the sustainable development goal of the 2030 agenda. Next, please. So he was here, Dr. And these are our cooperative leaders. As you can see, Dr. Gary Leonardo is there, Father Anton is there, the leaders of the cooperative movement. And of course, I think Dr. Guarco was accompanied by Mr. Balo Ayer, who is also with the ICA regional office of the Asia Pacific. Yes. Go ahead, please. So next, please. I have mentioned that. Okay. So essentially, this is what Dr. Dang discussed earlier on the nature, the 7 universally accepted principles, then the 6 organizational values of cooperatives, and the 4 ethical values of cooperatives. Next, please. So this has been mentioned and discussed. What is important here is that it is autonomous. Cooperatives are autonomous, and they are pursuing a common economic, social, cultural needs and aspiration. Okay. Next, please. And this is their 6 organizational values and 4 ethical values. As you can see, those are the ones that really create the energy for the cooperatives to do what they have to do, because it's in their DNA. So we're actually describing the DNA. This is the 7 universal principles, the 7 universally accepted principles that all over the world, wherever you go, these are the practices: the voluntary and open membership, democratic member control, member economic participation, autonomy and independence, education, training, and information, the cooperation among cooperatives, the concern for community. As I said, the cooperatives work for sustainable development of their communities through policies. So it is working in their respective areas. So what Lars Marcus mentioned and initiated was to consolidate and transmit this to the world, and inform the world that while you are talking about these MDGs and SDGs, the cooperative has been hit there ever since. Okay, and then that. And then for the 2030 agenda, the cooperative, the strategic direction is that the cooperative, again, as part of the SDG and the alignment with the SDG, is a people-centered organization. Okay, next, please. So this is what ICA does. Next, please. And the blueprint up to 2020, blueprint 2020 was extended to the agenda 2030, that the cooperative is still an acknowledged leader in economic, social, and environmental sustainability. So it's paving the way, it's leading the way, being the largest NGO in the world. And then it is a model preferred by people because it is people-centered. And then it is a growing, fastest growing form of an enterprise because it is a social business. It's a business that makes people happy. That's how Roberto Rodriguez described it in his address in the in the ICA American Congress. Next, please. So cooperatives essentially is working on the SDGs. Okay. Next, please. So, so it's SGSG and the Agenda 20 is really being aligned. Next, please. Okay. So can we just proceed to the way forward? Yeah, these are some of the areas where cooperatives have been present. So essentially, what the ICA wanted to achieve is that the cooperative model is a concrete and fully tested way of meeting people's economic, social, and cultural needs. Okay, it is very clear because we have close to 1 billion people who are actually involved in it. Okay, being the largest NGO. And each of us, the cooperative, this is the encouragement of the ICA in the Agenda 20, that all of us have to be actively engaged in cooperatives. And as we engage ourselves in the cooperatives, we are actually contributing to environmental sustainability. Next, please. It's very important that cooperatives are really drivers of sustainable and inclusive development, that this policy and regulatory environment should be able to support this. That's why the cooperatives should really engage, as what Dr. Leonardo and company is doing with PCC, engaging Congress and the Senate and the different agencies of government through the efforts and facilitation of Congressman Kanama, at least in the case of the Philippines. And the ICA is actively involved as well in the international scene with their work in the UN, with their work in FAO, in ILO, and many other international agencies. And I think they are trying to show the way here for us in the Philippines. And this has been what our leaders in the cooperative movement in the Philippines has been pushing in the last month, even last year, in few years back, because even now with the pandemic. Next, please. So the ICA Agenda 2030 essentially is to really align itself with SDG 2030. Next, please. So these are all the ways that this cooperative are advancing. At this here, what is mentioned is SDG 1 up to 8, but now we have also a lot because the ICA president now, ICA Dr. Ariel Guarco is really very strong in promoting climate change. Okay, next, please. Next. Yeah, next, please. Yeah. So before that. Okay, so the United Nations should really recognize, which they did, the role of cooperatives in the realization of sustainable development. And they have done that. And then what we are in the national level should do is really align ourselves with this effort of ICA and the UN in making sure that every step of the way we are able to see whether we are impacting on reducing poverty, on engaging women, or contributing to the problems of the basic needs and providing decent work and increasing our active prevention or protection of the environment. Next, please. And then cooperatives should be proactive by getting involved in the discussion in all local, national, and regional level. I would like to mention local. It's very good now that Senator Subiri and of course in the Senate initiated, and then there's a counterpart bill from Congressman Kanama and some members of the House to mandate or the created a law that are enacting a law that will mandate that all LGUs will have a cooperative development officer. So now for the students and eventually graduates of cooperatives, we're hoping that these particular positions will be filled up by as many of you working in various LGUs in the country. We have at least 70 provinces and 1,400 municipalities and many other cities. We need you there. So and then a graduate of cooperatives, we are advocating that graduate of cooperatives should occupy this particular role because you are exposed to real development, to community development, to training, to organizing, and understanding the cooperative as a social enterprise. It's very important that you prepare for this one important position available to you, employed by government initially. Okay? And of course, with a lot of large cooperatives, we have about 450 business billionaire cooperatives and about 500 medium cooperatives in the Philippines, and you will be needed. So try to understand how you can contribute in this area. Okay, next please. Okay, so the cooperatives, national, regional, and international organizations should enhance their representation and advocacy roles to improve the presence and voice of cooperatives. So, and this is what our national leaders here in the cooperative movement through the efforts of Dr. Leonardo. Okay, next please. And this, as I mentioned that, next please. I mentioned that also. Next please. Yes, this is a very important role that our Philippine cooperative sector is doing. No, that is with the efforts by the Philippine Cooperative Center and with the participation of NATCO, MASPEC, BIGGKAS, National FSDC, UMC, NCDC, LCDOP, and the support of large and primary co-ops like ACDI, FICO, Nueva Segovia, SDCC, Nowadesi, Tagum, Panabo, Paglaom, Simbayanan, and others. Consolidate our head start in sustained initiatives and good practices. This is what we cannot just keep to ourselves what we are doing. We have to communicate it. We have very good narratives, and the cooperative should be able to talk about it and share this with other groups. No? That the cooperatives have been in the forefront of promoting the sustainable development goals. So we continue engaging legislators like Senator Miguel Subiri, Ben Canama, and officials like the old CDA chair, earlier. So he is no convert. He has done a lot of work also in environment, and all working for co-op participation in crafting development agenda. Okay. Next, please. My concluding statements. So co-ops in the 19th and 20th century responded to the SDG concerns. This is how our SDG, it started with how our concern for community started, and how it is called SDG now. But to us, it's concern for the community and eventually to the larger society. The ICA blueprint is about deepening co-op identity and sustainability thanks to the efforts of Pauline Green. But of course, that was started by Lars Marcus. Then the ICA Agenda 2030 is strengthening alignment with SDG 2030, and this is what Dr. Ariel Guarco is pushing. The co-ops through ICA is the largest NGO in the world with huge social, economic, environmental impact, and it is there. So it is not only an aspiration, it is there, but it's growing and it is deepening its presence. The co-ops need to be proactively engaged in sharing their experiences in SDGs in all levels. And they have done that, and they're doing it. All they have to do is to communicate it. They have very good narratives on this. Next, please. And this is the last one, it's important. So SDGs are in co-ops. SDGs are in co-ops identity. But Pope Francis, this is an important realization in the process of my work here in this presentation. Pope Francis is a leader of a billion Catholics. Dr. Ariel Guarco, ICA president, one of the largest NGO with over 1 billion cooperators. Mr. Lionel Messi, a forward player for FC Barcelona, have 1 million followers in social media. And do you know that FC Barcelona have more than 70,000 members? It is a registered association. It is a cooperative. So all three are from Argentina, and they are all believers of cooperatives. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nito. So we may now proceed.
No need for that.
Okay.
Those are references.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nito. And we may now proceed to the Q&A session. So may I again invite Dr. Dang?
Yes.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Jessica, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Dang. So we may now proceed to the Q&A session. So I have here some questions from our participants. First, for Dr. Dang, this question is from Mr. Wilfredo Garumba. So he asks, he says, COVID-19 is a challenge to Philippine cooperative movement on how they can actively help the government, especially in the hardly hit NCR and Region 4. But cooperative must first recover to be able to help its members and communities. Bayanihan is doing a great job. but can the government, through DTI and CDA, replicate the whole of nation and whole of government approach for the rehabilitation and strengthening of affected cooperatives?
Well, of course, the government entities, no, the Department of Trade and Industry and the Co-op Development Authority has been also championing, no, the to beef up the operations of cooperatives. In fact, the DTI, they've partnered with DOST and other cooperative entities. They have provided a platform, no, for cooperatives to be able to market their products, no, and other online platform that they have provided. So they're helping in terms of providing the much needed technology. So these are all in the initial stages, no, that we are into the pandemic, and I guess we can't belittle the efforts that they have done, no. So aside from the Department of Trade and Industry, of course, instrumentalities such as Co-op Development Authority, and of course, the sector itself, no, are doing the all the initiatives, no, to strengthen the cooperatives in this aspect.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Dang. I also have another question here related to the impact of the pandemic. So, we thank you so much for the efforts of cooperatives in the relief operations to address pandemic impact among members. Are these mostly voluntary or are there specific calls for organized efforts by the CBA?
These are all voluntary. Ano? Well, of course, it is collectively done and it is organized by the very premise of the culture that we cooperatives have. No, even as early as the colonization, no, of the Spanish in the Philippines, we have been practicing the concept sociocultural um, roles that we have in as Filipinos, no, and these are the very culture of bayanihan, no, bayanihan and damayan. So it's innate in the Filipino to be really volunteering themselves, no, and we are lucky because of the presence of cooperatives. We are championing the causes of doing this bayanihan. Ano? So if you ask me whether is it voluntary or is it collectively done or it's an organized, it's all covering the three parameters, no? And you need not call on the people to help, no? The nature is there, the love is there. Cooperatives making a difference, no, and touching the lives of its co-members, and also, without any expectations in return, no. But because of the pandemic, they're there to help. They're there to willing to give their much of their community development fund for that purpose. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dang. Last question for now. This person says, thank you, Dr. San Gabriel, for the insights on social solidarity economy. May I kindly ask if the principles described in the SSE encapsulates or translates accordingly to the cooperative 7 principles as well? Are they synonymous or thus the co-op 7 principles subscribe to the SSE principles? And
Oh,
also, Dr. Dang, I'm sorry. There's
yeah.
another question related to that. I just would like to ask if there will be a plan to change the word cooperative into SSE in the long run. Okay.
All right, let me answer the first clarification. And in the Philippines, it's called cooperative, no, and in other ASEAN countries. But globally, cooperative is part of the social solidarity economy. No? In Europe, cooperatives is part of SSE and also in the United Kingdom. No? So if the question is, are we going to change the name cooperative into SSE? There's no need to change because cooperative is part of SSE per se. No? Social solidarity economy. All right. Now, the other question is about whether the values that I presented about social solidarity economy synonymous to the 7 universally accepted principles of cooperatives. Yeah, of course. Let me cite one specific of all the 5 values, and that is about solidarity, no? As a value of a social solidarity economy. And the solidarity value is synonymous or the same with the principle of cooperatives, which is cooperation among cooperatives. And principle number 7, concern for community, no? So it encapsulated, no, the values of SSE and cooperatives. All right. So um, and concretely, no, the bayanihan, no, even the law signed by President Duterte is named after our culture in the cooperative, no, and SSE, and that is bayanihan. Okay. So yeah, it's the same. The virtues and the values and the principles of co-ops are very much correlated.
Thank you, Dr. Dang, for your insights. Let's now proceed to Mr. Bienvenido Nito. Good
Si,
morning, sir.
si Dr. Gary ang sasagot doon sa tanong.
Okay, sir. So
Sir
we have
Bien
a
should be
question.
answering pala.
No, it's okay po. We have a question po for Mr. Nito. So the question is, what do you think is the main solution for poverty alleviation programs of cooperatives in the Philippines, especially in the rural or countryside, to be sustainable and solely not reliant to government or private agencies?
Parang isang buong lecture ulit yun. Pero yung quick answers, well, just focusing on yung context ng cooperative and how cooperatives can contribute to that. We have very good examples, very concrete examples, like yung Lamak Multipurpose Cooperative sa Cebu. They started with 70 farmers. They were able to alleviate the problem of the farmers with lack of inputs, lack of infrastructure, lack of post-harvest facilities, lack of financing, lack of marketing, logistical support. They were able to do that, you know. Lamak is 20, 30 years cooperative. And now they are all over the Visayas. They have already about close to 70,000 members. Imagine from a single barangay, Lamak is a barangay in the town of Pinamungaan in Cebu. They have extended that from that branch in that barangay. They have now more than 24 branches all over the Central Visayas, Western Visayas, Eastern Visayas. They're all over the place, and they are very strong partners of, for example, for Kasaba production. And they entered into partnership with San Miguel. So San Miguel is buying the Kasaba output. No, they are already they process everything. The cooperative supervises everything. The San Miguel provided some technical support, and then the cooperative was able to just deliver the pellets that are already. And then in return, San Miguel will sell them, provide them with the flour. And in most of the branches of these Lamak, they have a bakery, which is providing the members with nicely baked bread from the kasabat that they produce from the members, produced by the members. So they are able to orchestrate that, no, very concrete effort of providing inputs for that in kasaba production and bakery, and then the Kambal Pandesal line of bakery in the south. Then they also have a partnership with the Jollibee Foundation. That Jollibee orders from them a lot of vegetables grown by their members. No, So this is a partnership now. Now you see big corporation recognizing the important role of these cooperatives and how those cooperatives will be able to mobilize their members, and then that increases the income of the member. That increases, and really, if you see the experiences of the members of LAMAC, they are very happy the way they cooperate, and we have to replicate that. We should have another LAMAC in Mindanao, another LAMAC in position in Western Visayas, very strong, and perhaps in Eastern Visayas, and in the north. In the north, you have Nueva Segovia, very ably led by Ms. Divine. So you have this type, and this is a very concrete. And of course, some other groups are also replicating it. So it's a good partnership with government providing the environment, and a corporation, a socially responsible corporation working in partnership with cooperatives like LAMAC. And LAMAC is trying to provide this mechanism to mobilize and to help their members to generate improved incomes. You know? So what is essential is those principles that are stated in the blueprint allow the members to actively participate and then think of sustainability, but preserving unique identity and the mobilization of capital coming from the members, and the cooperatives are retaining their autonomy and independence, and that the government provides the legal environment, the legal framework by which these cooperatives can work. I think that's one concrete way how these cooperatives can really be tapped to promote sustainable development and address the problem of poverty and providing decent work and engendering or making the women participate actively in development. I
Thank you
hope
for
I
that.
answered.
I hope, thank you very much, Mr. Nito. We also have another question from Billie Jean Balsamo. So at the point of conception, how do we organize deprived groups with minimal to no prior organization?
You mean
And
to form
also,
them to a
are
cooperative?
are cooperative social enterprises?
They are, and essentially, the DNA of cooperative is social. You have people forming themselves. That's why it's social. But then their concern is economic. But then they have to run it like a business. So that's why they are also called social business, because a lot of people are forming it, no? And the business is really intended to improve the lives of those people who are patronizing, working, and helping the cooperative enterprise. So that's why it's aptly called social economic enterprise. So all the elements are there. They have different. They are trying to put and assimilate the DNA of cooperatives. Okay, so for a start, it will be good to look for an existing cooperative and be part of it. No, like because they have a lot of experiences. It's really hard because there's an economics to forming a cooperative. Like a credit cooperative should have at least 1,000 members. A consumer cooperative should have at least 2,000 members. A worker cooperative can start with 300, but they should grow to 1,000 to 5,000. If you are not able to do that, or of course, depending on the type of activity, and you don't have the scale to do that, it will not be viable. It will just be a samahan. But then, ang kooperatiba ay samahang pangkabuhayan. So, pag wala yung pangkabuhayan, yung pangkabuhayan ay ginagawa ng isang negosyong paraan. So it's a negosyong samahan pangkabuhayan. Ay pag wala yung tatlong elemento, hindi siya mag-work. So kailangan maliwanag at kailangan naintindihan yung DNA. Kalimitan ng pagkalugmok ng cooperative ay hindi naintindihan yung kanyang DNA. I hope I answered.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Nito, and also to Dr. Dang. So this ends our Q&A session. In the interest of time, we won't be able to mention some of the questions of the participants, but we will
Set
just
the question.
consolidate them and we will send them to the speakers. Okay. So it has truly been an insightful and engaging discussion. Now, for the next part of our webinar, to lead the unity statement, to promote the SDGs, and to give the closing remarks, may we invite Dr. Garibaldi Leonardo, Chairman of the Philippine Cooperative Center.
Thank you, Cheska, and good afternoon, everyone.
Good
I would have
afternoon.
wanted to say good morning, but I guess time caught up with us already. So for and on behalf of the cooperative sector, I wish to thank BIGGKAS Plus, CRC, as well as UA and P for inviting me to be part of this of today's webinar. I also wish to thank Dr. Villegas, Dr. Dang, and Professor Bien for crystallizing the contribution of cooperatives to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. Well, as you may have gathered from the presentations earlier, the cooperative sector readily relates to at least 12 of the 17 SDGs, the SDGs being effectively the cooperative's DNA, as mentioned earlier by Professor Bien. 9 of those goals, or actually the first 9 goals, may be considered as having financial inclusion as their underpinning aspiration. The reason for this is that with financial inclusion, we hope to be able to address concerns that I listed down as those relating to poverty, hunger, health, education, gender equality, employment, engagement of the youth, infrastructure, industrialization, and innovation, just to name a few. On the other hand, 2 of those goals may be looked upon as being concerned with promoting a more inclusive society. And specifically, these are goals 10 and 16. And then the last one, which is goal 17, is concerned specifically with the development of enterprises, of partnerships. So where and how have cooperatives been an instrument in promoting each of the SDGs? I trust Doc Dang and Professor Bien wouldn't mind, but just to reiterate a few of the points that they raised earlier, I'd like to go through 5 of the goals that which to me would be most relevant to the Philippine cooperative setting. I'd like to start off with goal number 1, which is to end poverty. Talks about reducing poverty at the very least, as well as providing equal access to economic resources and basic services. Most notable would be financial services and especially recently, access to technology. This is where the cooperative principle of member economic participation, which is one of the 7 cooperative principles spoken about earlier by Bien and Dan, sets in. Specifically in terms of the members contributing equitably, regardless of stature, to the capital of a cooperative, and in turn getting equitable shares of the cooperative's net surplus. It may also be noted at this juncture that cooperatives, by their very nature, have always been looked upon as instruments of economic freedom and social justice. Thus, the concern of those in the periphery of society is primordial, or should be primordial, for any cooperative. Goal number 2, which is to end hunger, on the other hand, talks about achieving food security, augmenting the incomes of small-scale producers, and promoting sustainable agriculture. In this regard, the cooperative sector has been in pursuit of value chain initiatives, simple as some of this may be. But we in the sector see value chain as one intervention that could help bring about food security while augmenting the incomes of the farmers. This aligns in particular with the Balik Probinsya Bagong Pag-asa program of the government, under which we see the need for a clear agro-techno policy that will revitalize agriculture and bring about genuine industrialization, upon which, in turn, the generation of jobs is substantially anchored, particularly in the countryside. For this, the cooperative sector is continuously partnering with government agencies, notably the Department of Agriculture and our mother agency, the Department of Trade and Industry. I'd like to move on now to goal number 3, which talks about ensuring health and well-being for all at all ages, which is one of the more, if not the most relevant during the present times. Especially in the midst of this pandemic, cooperatives have been at the forefront as regards the distribution of personal protective equipment, medical supplies, and food packs. It may be worthwhile to mention also that the 3 cooperative insurance federations have jointly come up with a package of health and life insurance products for the elders. And take note, this particular package extends up to age 99. And then the development of a full-blown digitized infrastructure for delivering health services is also a continuing endeavor. Goal number 4 seeks to provide inclusive, quality education for all. And in this regard, the cooperative sector has been in continuous pursuit of partnerships with the academe, such as PUP and perhaps UANP, as well as with government agencies like TESDA and CHED. Also, one of the statutory funds of every cooperative is the so-called Cooperative Education and Training Fund, or CTF. This, in turn, is in support of another cooperative principle, which is education, training, and advocacy that enjoins cooperatives to provide education and training to their different stakeholders so that, in turn, they can contribute more effectively to the development of their respective cooperatives and communities. Goal number 5 endeavors to achieve gender equality. And towards this end, not only is Gender and Development, or GAD, a major undertaking of all cooperatives, but the initiative even extends to engaging the youth and increasing the participation of women, not only in the cooperative's activities, but more importantly, in leadership positions. Jumping on now to goal number 16 that specifically seeks to promote increased participation of the marginalized low-income earners towards a more inclusive society, I wish to reiterate that cooperatives are seen as enablers of economic freedom and social justice. And one cooperative principle that comes to fore in this respect is concern for community, which is one principle that was really lived out by so many cooperatives in the midst of this current pandemic, and which was even exacerbated by the onslaught of the successive typhoons that hit the country. Related to this, we have lobbied for the use of another statutory fund of cooperatives, the so-called Cooperative Development Fund, or CDF, to provide assistance to needy cooperative communities, including those outside a cooperative's sphere of operations. Because just to explain a bit, presently, by virtue of the memorandum circular issued by the Cooperative Development Authority, or CDA, a cooperative can only make use of its CDF within its sphere of operations. And we thank CDA for giving cooperatives some flexibility on their use of the CDF, at least during this time of the pandemic. So how then can we strengthen the role of cooperatives in promoting the SDGs? Well, over and above the ways forward shared earlier by Bien, I think key here is the principle of working together that goal number 17 itself espouses, which is to revitalize partnerships for sustainable development. In this regard, and again, particularly in the light and in the midst of this pandemic, one cooperative principle that has stood out is cooperation among cooperatives, with cooperatives coming together to provide assistance of different forms to the cooperative communities that were most affected. partly in response to some of the questions raised earlier, we have also lobbied with the government that cooperative structures be leveraged for its various economic recovery programs by treating cooperatives as a distinct class. There was a question raised earlier, should cooperatives just be called SSEs? And I think it was responded to effectively by Dr. Dang. No? And we had, in this regard, we had specifically requested that cooperatives and cooperative members be considered not only as beneficiaries of the different modes of assistance that the government provides, but also as direct partners and conduits in its various economic recovery programs. Our request that we submitted to government was based on the following. First, as I cited earlier, cooperatives are considered instruments of economic freedom and social justice. Second, cooperatives are also enablers and promoters of the values of self-help, self-responsibility, self-reliance, and self-organization. Third, to reiterate, cooperatives contribute to 12 of the 17 SDGs, notably zero hunger and zero poverty. Fourth, cooperatives support one of the government's flagship programs, which is Ambisyon Natin 2040, the underlying aspiration of which is that by 2040, Filipinos will be enjoying a strongly rooted, comfortable, and secure life. And lastly, even the Philippine Development Plan expressly distinguishes cooperatives from MSMEs. So in line with all this, we have also requested that CDA be further capacitated in order to strengthen its support for and partnership with the cooperative sector. In particular, we lobbied that CDA be part of or be directly involved in the Economic Stimulus Board that manages the different modes of assistance. By way of closing, you would note from among most, if not all, of the above cooperative endeavors that the operative word is integration, which springs from a perceived need to integrate the sector. On the other hand, there are also those who think and say that what the sector really needs is unification. So what then is the basic difference between integration and unification? To my mind, to integrate is to make whole by addressing whatever deficiencies there may be for the sector as a whole or for any of its parts. On the other hand, to unify is to make one. That is, getting our acts together, coming together, working together. So what is it then for the Philippine cooperative sector? To me personally, it's both, because we need to be whole and we need to be one. We need to unify our leaders, we need to integrate our activities, and we need to consolidate our resources. And relating this to Dr. Dang's earlier presentation, integration and unification make up the cooperative value of solidarity, which he expounded on earlier. And this is in order that we can continuously face up to whatever may militate against the sector, living up to its role of promoting and helping attain the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And in the process, enable cooperatives to help transition from directed love to political love, as expounded earlier by Dr. Villegas. Thank you all for listening, and thank you for joining us. I would have wanted to say this morning, but I guess I'll have to say thank you for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Leonardo, for the informative closing remarks. We would also like to take this opportunity to award our certificates of appreciation to our resource person. So allow me to read the content of the certificate. So the Center for Social Responsibility of the University of Asia and the Pacific, through the initiative of the University-wide Outreach and Extension Office of BIGGKAS Plus, awards these certificates of appreciation to Dr. Bernado Villegas, Dr. Hilda San Gabriel, Mr. Bienvenido Nito, and Dr. Garibaldi Leonardo, respectively, in recognition of their valuable insights and expertise as resource speakers to the webinar on strengthening the role of cooperatives in the promotion of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So given this fourth day of December 2020, signed by Mr. Fernan Francis Hermoso, BIGGKAS Plus Program Director, and Professor Colin Legarde Hubo, Executive Director of UANP Center for Social Responsibility. So let us give them a virtual round of applause. And we will send the certificates to the resource persons via email. And with that, may we also have a photo opportunity. So we'd like to invite our speakers, Sir Mr. Francis Hermoso and Professor Colin Hubo, to turn on their cameras for a photo op. Okay, so let's now start. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Another one. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much again to our speakers. And once again, thank you for our participants for gracing us with your attendance. We truly appreciate it. You may provide your feedback on this webinar through the survey form that will pop out on your screen after closing your window tab. Please be informed that only the participants who accomplish their feedback form will receive their e-certificates. And we will seek permission from our invited speakers before we disseminate their lecture materials to everyone who attended this webinar. Thank you very much and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you also.
Thank you.
Dr. Gary,
Maraming
Dr.
salamat
Ang
po.
din.
Colleen,
Sir Gary,
salamat.
thank you. Sir
F, salamat.
Jessica,
Jessica,
Sir
salamat.
Same here,
Colleen,
Doc
thank
Salamat
you.
sa lahat ng nag-attend.
Thank you po.
Thank
Salamat
you,
po.
Dr. Leonardo,
Thank
Dr.
Thank
you.
you.
Dan,
Thank
and
you, Sir
Professor
Colleen.
Nito. Thank you, Dr. Bernie also.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to the co-op leaders who were with us. Salamat po at sa mga students. Salamat.
Saan ba yan? Ito.